Wave 3 is looking good. Wave 3 is 100% looking good, and my excitement levels are very high. All of the tracks look very well designed, well, outside of Alpine Pass looking a bit cheap, but outside of that, everything looks immaculate. A little too immaculate. Okay, yeah, let's be honest, you know that there'll still be people online making nitpicks here and there, but for me personally and for many others, we've reached like the peak level of this DLC, which is crazy to think because only a few months ago when Wave 2 came out, we were saying the same thing. So where do I think the DLC is heading in now? Well, to put it simply, I think we're in the end game now. But SGB, we're in the middle of the DLC, what are you talking about? At the very beginning of this whole Booster Course Pass saga, I've been saying that Nintendo is going to start off simple, maybe even small, and then end things on a large scale. Seeing how things are getting better each wave, I still believe it, possibly even more now. Notice how we're getting more and more fan favourites as we're going deeper into each wave. Notice how we haven't had a Rainbow Road track in the Booster Course Pass until now. Also, have you noticed that there's a lot more variety in the tracks selected and track theming? Now, I'm not saying that everything feels the same in Wave 1, but compared to now, there is a lot more variety, and I feel like the theming kind of stretches a lot more now. I feel like a lot of the tracks in the previous two waves felt a little bit narrow at times. Obviously it's hard to tell because we don't have Wave 3 in our hands yet, but a lot of the tracks selected are pretty expansive. Like Peach Gardens, for example, I mean, it's a garden with chain chomps, of course that's going to be a wham track. Then you've got Maple Treeway, where obviously there's massive wigglers everywhere. And Boo Lake literally has an entire underwater section. This is actually the first underwater section in this Booster Course Pass, by the way. So because Nintendo is upping the scales each and every wave, one of these tracks finally getting a full-on underwater section, 3DS Rainbow Road having unnecessarily great treatment by making the road look absolutely amazing, the fact that we even got a Rainbow Road track, and one thing that I haven't even mentioned yet, the fact that we haven't even had a single Double Dash track yet in this Booster Course Pass. There's a lot of pressure on this second half of this DLC because there's a lot of gaps that need to be filled, and seeing how Wave 3 is basically the peak of this DLC at the moment, you're gonna have to figure out a way to top that. But that shouldn't be too difficult because there are a ton of tracks that you can pick for us, Nintendo. Haven't had a Bowser's Castle track yet, keep that in mind. So although I'm excited for Wave 3 and I should really be grateful for Wave 3 right now, if anything it's got me super excited for the second half of this DLC, because if we're in the middle of this DLC and we're at the peak and there's still a lot of tracks left on the table in terms of fan service and obviously the more popular tracks and the more interesting tracks, this could be very good. I just thought of something. Imagine I'm there just hyping up Bowser's Castle for the second half of the DLC, only for them to just remake a GBA or a SNES Bowser's Castle. I mean, unless they give it the GBA retro track treatment, I mean, that would work, I think, but Nintendo just don't do that. That would just be such a missed opportunity.